We live on a very big planet in an even bigger solar system with a massive galaxy that is only one of trillions inside a vast universe. With every passing day, scientists are discovering that life exists in places they previously believed to be barren. They discover water in massive deposits on distant planets. They find fatty acids on Mars and strange gas plumes that should never be there. When we walk into the desert of our own planet, we say that there can be no life, and yet nature finds a way. The truth is that the deserts of our world are teeming with life. We just have to alter our perception and search a little harder. If life can find a way in searing heat with minuscule amounts of water, then surely it can find a way somewhere in the vast universe. In mankind's short history, we have moved rapidly from sticks and stones to atomic weapons and smartphones. And yet, there are galaxies out there, billions of light years older than our own. Somewhere out there, alien life forms exist. And somewhere, they have technology so advanced it will be beyond our own imagination. Of this, there is no doubt. Surely these life forms are curious about the same things. Surely they have pushed out into the universe to find the truth. Surely they have found us. But wouldn't we have evidence? The fact is that we do have evidence. We have it in abundance. Aliens have reached out. They have found us, and they have visited. Across the world, thousands of men and women have seen with their own eyes the visitors. They have seen their craft. They have even come into contact with them. The fact is, there has been dozens and dozens of UFOs crashed onto our planet, and we have witnessed them. What are they doing? Why are they crashing? Are we at war? Our secretive military and intergovernments know what is happening, and they are hiding it from us. They close down every site, cordon off, recover technology and corpses, and then cover up. They have been doing so for decades, and we are being fooled. Why? Because we are at war. This is the story of alien contact. This is the story of the UFO invaders. In December 1965, residents of a small village in Pennsylvania witnessed a green light streaking across the sky before it then crashed in a field. Eyewitnesses described the object as acorn-shaped and twice the size of a family car. Local fireman James Romansky, who was at the scene for 15 minutes, stated the vehicle had hieroglyphic markings around its lower rim. Within minutes, the military and unknown government officials arrived, cordoned off the area, and placed armed guards. It was assumed at the time that the craft was of Soviet origin, and yet they have strenuously denied such claims. In 2009, a Freedom of Information request was issued to NASA, who had to admit that the case files were missing. This scenario is one that we will discover again and again. Ordinary people witnessing objects crashing to Earth, rush to assist, and finding themselves escorted from the scene by military and plain-clothed officials. The Russians often get the blame. And yet these sightings occur all around the globe, and very often in Russia, where the USA gets the blame. There are several things we need to note before we proceed. Firstly, the sightings around the world are incredibly similar. Secondly, the sightings span decades, and yet the objects appear to have a consistency we would not expect if human technology was being employed. Our flying machines have changed from the 1940s to the present day. These huge numbers of UFO crash sightings all have a small range of objects, sources, orbs, triangles, and cigar shapes. Often the shapes are difficult to see because the craft is hidden in flames. The next case is like this, and on the other side of the world, in Australia. It was 1977, and we are in Western Australia, north of the Eyre Highway. Witnesses saw in the sky a green fireball speeding across the sky and crashing. Within a few hours, a retrieval team was on the scene who discovered a large, heavily damaged triangular object, slightly smaller than a conventional airliner. Nobody could identify the craft. Reports state that 2 men had already been on the scene before the retrieval teams arrived. One of them claimed to be from the Australian Army. He had entered the craft and emerged shaken. He stated clearly to witnesses that the occupants were still alive. He was taken away and decontaminated. The second man, not surprisingly, was said to have been from the US. This second man was taken away. According to a leak from within the military, the Australian was interrogated for 2 weeks to ensure he would not be a threat to security. Of the 2 beings inside the craft, one died. The other was squealing. They were said to have thin, long arms and large stomachs, and stood around 5 feet tall. They had large, solid black eyes. According to the informant, the retrieval was a joint US and Australian team sent out to recover alien technology and life forms. And it was not the first time. Very often, UFO sightings occur during times of war. In World War II, massive UFO sightings occurred with the infamous Foo Fighters. Glowing orbs of light that harassed Allied and Axis aircraft. One of these was actually shot down and recovered by the military. Again, in Operation Desert Storm, a similar event occurred. A Saudi Arabian newspaper reported that an American Air Force F-16 fighter jet actually shot down a UFO. The paper claimed they had evidence that the 5 nations involved in the war were colluding to cover up the incident. A senior Russian official at the time, Colonel Gregor Petrikov, stated, "I don't know all the details, but I'm sure when this story comes out, it will shake the world. It is a cover-up waiting to explode." The colonel claimed to have been the first on the scene, which was a desert area over 200 miles north of Riyadh. He said, "The Americans won't admit it was a UFO their plane shot down, but the debris was not from any known aircraft. The Saudis with me were so frightened that they asked American, British, and French investigators to come to the crash site immediately." Before the Americans arrived, the Russian colonel had time to investigate himself. It was something he'd never seen before: a circular craft made of unidentified material. In World War II, very similar craft had been back-engineered by the Nazis, who also said that the crashed UFO they had found was made from unidentifiable material. It was the inability to recreate the material which stopped the Nazis from being able to get their flying saucers into the sky. Decades later, sources with strange material are still flying around and still crashing. The Russian colonel got a good look at this one and said that he assumed the Americans had brought it down with a ground-to-air missile because a third of it was missing. He saw the markings on the instrument panels and stated that it was not in any language he had ever seen. There were 3 small chairs unsuitable for humans. The strangest thing was this: there were no beings in the craft, nor was there any engine. He stated, "The American missiles may have scored a direct hit on the engine, causing it to disintegrate. But I checked with the Saudi radar technicians, and they claim their instruments didn't show anyone ejecting or bailing out from the craft." Search helicopters were all over the area, which is a desert, and they did not spot any survivors in the vicinity of the crash. The colonel was later told that the radar blip that first spotted the craft just appeared out of nowhere, as 4 F-16s were heading fast towards Baghdad. Suddenly, one F-16 broke formation and headed straight for the craft. Then the UFO moved away and the F-16 gave chase. As the fighter came within 3 miles of the UFO, the alien craft fired something but missed, and the F-16 fired back. 2 missiles hit the craft. A huge explosion was followed by the crash. That's when the colonel was quickly on the scene, only to be ordered off by American teams as they arrived. He said, "There were things they didn't want us to see more of, I think, than the fact that the craft was circular, that there were no survivors, and that it was made of a foreign substance." His team members managed to get photographs, but were later ordered to hand them over by senior Russian authorities. That's the last anybody knows about the crashed UFO of Saudi Arabia. One startling point about this case is this: the US government aren't obviously feeling too friendly towards UFOs. We have to ask the question, is there some kind of war afoot that we are not aware of? It is not just wartime that brings about crashed UFOs, though. There are some areas of the world that have prolific sightings. South America, for instance, is a hotbed of UFO activity. In 1996, the Brazilian town of Argentina gave witness to something quite strange. dozens of witnesses shocked by the sudden appearance of small orange beings, seemingly on the run from something. They were captured by the local fire service and taken to hospital, where again, dozens of witnesses saw them. It all ended with a swift intervention of the US military. But where did they come from? Many believe they came from a crashed UFO downed by the US. North America is not free of its own events. On Friday the 13th of October 2000, witnesses in Elk City, Oklahoma saw several US fighter planes in hot pursuit of a UFO. It crashed north of the city at a farm after having been seen by dozens of people as far west as Shamrock in Texas. A local ufologist called Jim Hammond said, "I noticed a bright luminous vapor trail that went from the southwest to the northeast. There were several other trails in the area to the north, but they seemed normal in color. I saw no other lights or aircraft in the area." Other witnesses saw the same thing, describing a fireball like a meteor, leaving a trail behind and being followed by planes. The sheriff's department also reported seeing the object and recorded it as sparks in the sky. The next day, local TV news reported the event, saying that reports had come into them from across the state. They called NORAD, the Air Base, and the National Weather Service and discovered that the object had been witnessed by people from Texas to Nebraska. In Kansas, witnesses reported that the light had in fact smaller lights around the object, with vapors coming out of them. NORAD reported it as a large meteor shower. Witnesses on the ground disagreed entirely. It's not just a war, not just location. These events have been happening throughout time. Indeed, there are medieval depictions of large craft coming down in flames to crash into the earth. A massive increase occurred during the Second World War, while humans were flying around in propeller-driven aircraft. But it didn't end there. There is, of course, the infamous crash at Roswell, New Mexico, just after the war. But there were many more as well, often overlooked because of the infamy of that special event. In 1948, at Aztec, New Mexico, 3 radar units actually tracked another crashing UFO. So concerned was the US government that the Secretary of State ordered a search party. Within hours, they discovered a 30-foot circular disc north of Aztec and recovered several badly charred humanoids. No other information has been released. But we do know that the disc itself is stored in Hangar 18 at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. This one they couldn't claim to be a weather balloon. In the same year in Lerdo, Mexico, 4 police officers saw a UFO crash. They then witnessed a recovery team secretly take it away again. A year later in Death Valley, California, 2 witnesses watched in awe as a 24-foot saucer crashed into the desert. It made page 13 of the next day's newspaper. A year later, witnesses saw yet another saucer-shaped disc crash near Mexico City. In the same year, in Argentina, another disc crashed. This time, a citizen discovered it first and found 4 very small pilots inside, all dead. Next day, he returned with his friend, only to find a pile of warm ashes. Above them in the sky, they saw a cigar-shaped object, as if monitoring the area. In Brady, Montana, in 1953, a certain Mr. Tenney was returning from Great Falls when he saw a large oval shape following his car. Small fireballs fell across the road as he drove. He reported the incident. However, he was phoned by an Air Force colonel and asked to report to the base. He then found himself in a windowless room and asked to sign his statement. As he did so, he saw 2 guards carrying bags of humanoid bodies. The event stayed with him for years. In the same year in Arizona, a U.S. Air Force veteran revealed that he helped recover a large crash disc. Approximately 30 feet wide, the disc had sunk 20 inches into the ground. Again, there was a small humanoid inside, dead. It was wearing a silver suit, no helmet, and had large dark eyes. The U.S. Air Force have never denied his statement. Around the same time in Alabama, a large disc-shaped object crashed near Birmingham. Again, the military cordoned off the area and several humanoid bodies were extracted and flown away. In Syracuse, New York, 1954, witnesses saw a 20-foot object on the ground surrounded by men examining it and taking pictures. They were told by local police that it was some kind of military secret, and yet the police later denied the event even took place. If these events were simply recoveries of military test craft, then there would be no need to examine and take photographs. Doing such things slows down the recovery process and risks discovery. Across the world, in Poland in 1959, reports emerged of a fallen object in a sea harbor. Divers were sent in and they recovered pieces of shiny metal. This was later examined by the Polytechnic Institute and the Polish Navy. Some supposedly disappeared. A few days later, a small humanoid washed up on a beach, and its remains spirited away to Russia. The following year, New York police actually captured a small humanoid outside of his crashed craft. 2 others escaped. The CIA were called, and the humanoid meters long. It was then excavated by military engineers and cordoned off. Most believed it to be some form of missile from the war, much like the V-1 rockets of North Sea Germany. However, the discovery so baffled the experts that it was taken away in top secret to a location in Russia called Podlipki. This later became the first Soviet missile research center. Here's the strange thing. It emerged that the object had actually been too far underground to have been an enemy missile. In fact, it was at a level that placed it below anything. It was thousands of years old. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that the object was already known and had been found before in the 19th century. It had been left in place and marked as belonging to what is known as the Tripolian culture, 4,000 years before Christ. At that time, the governor of Kiev ordered the object to be buried because nobody had any idea how to deal with it. However, in 1947, when it was rediscovered, the feelings were very different. Its technology might very well be useful in the Cold War era. So what did the Soviets discover? They did establish that only the front cockpit remained. No other parts were found. They estimated that originally the craft must have been around 12 meters long. The front section was so cleanly cut that it was assumed some form of high-powered laser device had done the job. They concluded that the craft was not of Earth. Two small chairs were unsuitable for humans and mirrored the eyewitness accounts of contemporary sightings. Again, symbols were discovered, assumed to be ancient Sanskrit. In Indian legend, there are ships of light known as Vimana, and so it was assumed these were those. Academic and missile designer Sergei Korolev was placed in charge of the research. He is reported to have suggested that the technology was so advanced it was almost not worth researching. It was beyond our comprehension. They did research it though, and they did devise new alloys and rocket technology. Only 10 years after finding the UFO, they put the Sputnik into orbit, beating the US in the space race. Much like Roswell, the Valle de Elqui in Chile is also a hotspot for UFO activity. In 1998, residents of a nearby village witnessed a UFO hovering over a local hill. It shocked the entire population of 2,500. They saw a shiny metal object 15 meters across. It hovered, motionless, as the whole town came out to witness it. It remained there for 3 full days. Everybody from the town mayor to the police witnessed the event. The whole area was electrically blacked out, and all radio and TV broadcasts affected. Then it started to move upward slowly, but then suddenly turned and split in two and crashed. Local police were sent to the scene on horseback. They reported finding nothing, but still cordoned off the area. Over the next few hours and days, Huge numbers of military vehicles and unmarked helicopters was seen in the area, and one man witnessed a large metallic object being lifted away by chopper. Most witnesses are convinced that whatever crashed in that remote hillside, it was big and the main segment carried away on a huge truck. The military have never given an explanation. However, here's what we do know. The military did not just investigate the local village and hill. They extended their search across a wide range and forced everyone away from the crash site for miles. All the local hotels reported a sudden surge in bookings from US citizens claiming to be tourists. These were most certainly CIA and other security services. After the military operation, people who visited the hillside reported finding stones that were now the color of aluminum. There were several of the usual explanations given by the authorities. A weather balloon, atmospheric conditions. None of these make any sense given the sheer volume of witnesses, the hovering for 3 days, and the sudden breakup and crash. Huge numbers of military personnel and plain-clothed US citizens would not have been drafted in for a weather balloon. Besides, such balloons require advanced written permission to be launched, and there are no records of any request. What is very interesting is the fact that 4 months prior to this event, another object had crashed just over 10 miles away at Cerro Tololo. Witnesses stated there was a deafening noise, a bright flash, and many homes had their windows smashed. So bright was the flash that it appeared to be daytime and was witnessed over 150 miles away. Suddenly, storms appeared, and there was general panic among the population. One local taxi driver said that he was often chased by strange flying lights, but on that particular night, both he and his passengers were scared out of their wits. The lights he often saw came out of nowhere, from behind hills and round bends. He said they seemed to be acting intelligently, not some kind of natural swamp gas. Again, the military arrived and witnesses reported seeing huge trucks carrying things away. The whole area, in fact, is a hotbed of UFO activity. Hundreds, if not thousands of witnesses see flying lights. So common is the activity that the locals are getting used to it. Something big is being covered up in this area. The lights themselves are too similar to the Foo Fighters of the Second World War. And one thing we do know about the end of the war is this: a great many Nazis escaped Europe and ended up in South America. During the war, these same Nazis had developed technology far beyond that of the rest of the world. Prior to the war, the Nazis had actually recovered a crashed UFO themselves, and many believe that through their occult activities that they were in fact in contact with aliens. Whatever the case, there is something very strange happening down in Chile. Brazil is another location that regularly appears in the news for UFO sightings. But in 1977, something really big happened. The Brazilian island of Caleres literally came under UFO attack. Unidentified craft started firing at the locals with what they described as laser beams. Nearly 100 people reported having been attacked, and 35 of them suffered what can only be described as radiation poisoning. Burn marks, puncture wounds, and hair loss were all apparent. There were even 2 deaths. The Air Force quickly sent in a team to investigate the situation under the original title of Operation Saucer. Photographs, witness statements, and physical records of trajectories were all collated over a 4-month period of attacks. In 2004, some of the results were made public. These had been massively redacted, and there has been no official reasonable explanation. To this day, residents are convinced they were attacked by aliens. What the reports did reveal was quite remarkable. When the UFOs did come, they arrived either by air or from beneath the waves. In Argentina in 1995, another cover-up occurred. In an area known as Salta, thousands of people witnessed a UFO event. As they watched, it appeared as if it were struck by an air-to-air missile and crashed. A few hours later, a small private plane flew over the site and it crashed too. The pilot claimed that some kind of electromagnetic anomaly occurred that made his plane lose power. Military and security services cordoned off the entire area. Many of these were said to have been foreign and U.S. personnel. What did they find? Witnesses claim it was a massive saucer-shaped object, and 200 or so strange corpses were recovered. These were apparently sent to the U.S. Whatever happened, the sheer numbers of corpses indicates some kind of carrier. Was this part of some invasion? Was this an alien passenger craft? We simply do not know. But something did happen, as thousands of witnesses cannot be wrong. The evidence on the ground proved that something big hit. Massive vegetation destruction was obvious. Indeed, the seismic impact was measured over 90 miles away from the crash site. A team of rescuers was actually initially sent in. They witnessed a devastated landscape before them. In the middle of that charred and scarred landscape, they saw a huge metallic object. They immediately radioed in their location and were ordered to return to base. An Argentinian journalist stated, "There is no doubt that we have NASA personnel here trying to conceal the truth," assisted by members of the National University at Salta, but refuses to publicize its involvement. Just like in Chile and Brazil, this whole area is not new to UFO activity. In 1978, the town of Villa Mercedes went berserk as 50 or so UFOs streaked across the skies, causing mass panic. The local radio presenter furiously took calls from across the area of scared witnesses, and then he too witnessed it and confirmed the events. greenish-blue lights in the sky moving around from 10 p.m. till midnight and growing in number from 50 to 100. An Air Force sergeant reported them flying at approximately 15,000 feet, oval-shaped and making no sound. So clear was his view that he reported seeing no windows in the craft. Across the border in Chile, radio stations were reporting a massive fleet of flying saucers entering the area. Then suddenly, there was a huge explosion as one of them crashed to Earth. The military was sent out to investigate the crash, but claimed to have found nothing and refused to discuss it any further. Earlier still, in 1962 in Bolivia, something came crashing down to Earth 30 miles from the city of La Paz. Nothing was seemingly recovered, but a strange appearance of a puma immediately afterwards caused a stir, because there are no pumas in Bolivia. The cat was unfortunately killed and its pelt sold to the U.S. Air Attaché. Again in Bolivia, in a place called Tarija, in 1978, witnesses saw a 20-foot object fly right over them and crash into a hillside. The explosion could be heard 50 miles away. Again, the military were sent in, and again, there was no further information. This incident is indicative of dozens more in this area: Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. The whole area is awash with UFO activity and crashes. A year after the Tarija incident, and in the same area, yet another crash occurred. A local farmer reported seeing a huge fireball falling from the sky, and then the following morning, a military plane circling the area. So he decided to go and take a look himself. He found a sphere that he described as lightweight and made from some unknown metal. It was only small, about 3 times the size of a football. But then the Bolivian Air Force arrived and he was prevented from recovering the object. The Air Force stated it was a fuel cell from a satellite. In 1990 in Colombia, 3 people were traveling along in their Jeep. Suddenly, they started to have engine trouble and it went dead. Then in the sky, they saw colored lights playing around. They grew in size, and then suddenly, a massive saucer appeared and hovered over their heads. It appeared out of control, and they actually thought it was going to crash into them. Somehow, the legs were paralyzed, and they couldn't move. Then, before the ship could crash, another appeared and hovered above the first. A beam of white light from the second saucer stabilized the first, and 2 aliens emerged to repair the troubled UFO. And after that, the UFOs disappeared into a thick fog. The 3 witnesses slept that night on the hillside, but when they awoke, they saw a landscape that appeared to have been scorched. Dead rodents and lizards had been roasted alive. Ponds now dry. Later, one of the witnesses died of an unknown disease that some believe to have been radiation poisoning. Mexico has not escaped the world of UFO activity. In fact, almost every day there is a report of something. But in 1977, something amazing happened. In July, the town of Puebla witnessed several large falling UFOs crashing in the distance. The army was called out. Rumors of a UFO crash and a cover-up spread. Nearby in Yopla, the townsfolk also saw the same thing, and this time they reported seeing a craft explode into thousands of sparkling pieces. Mayors, teachers, policemen, everybody saw it. As many witnesses rushed to recover the debris, they discovered that the Americans had already beaten them to it in an unmarked helicopter. Many believe them to have been members of the U.S. Air Force Moondust and Blue Fly recovery teams, specialist units set up to speedily recover UFO technology. Some fragments were recovered before the team of so-called NASA scientists could stop them. They were analyzed and found to be an alloy unknown to humanity at that time. It was then discovered that another crash had happened at Tabasco and that 2 dead aliens had been recovered. Another crash in 1996 near Mexico City was witnessed by hundreds of people. A huge glowing light that changed size and color, crossing the sky at incredible speeds. Splitting into around 7 lights, it lost speed and then crashed on the slopes of a volcano. The whole thing was witnessed for miles around, and radio stations were inundated with reports. Many of the witnesses were highly professional men and women. One anthropologist said the object had been incandescent and followed by other objects as it made its way towards the volcano. Again, no decent explanation, and a lot of covering up ensued. A year later in Puerto Rico, reports flooded in of a crashed UFO near the small town of Leyes. The crash caused a brushfire, causing some to claim that it was just a meteor, but astronomy experts insisted that there would have been a crater. It appeared from all the evidence that whatever it was burned up before impact and set fire to the dry vegetation. Radio stations reported transmission difficulties just after the explosions and electromagnetic interference. Then the military were called in again, and in usual fashion, cordoned off, recovered debris, and covered up. The U.S. Coast Guard joined in and said there had possibly been an aircraft crash. No reports of missing aircraft were ever filed. What we have here with these reports is pretty hard evidence that something is crashing. Let's just look at what we found. Firstly, the reports of craft vary slightly, but predominantly appear to be saucer-shaped or disc shapes. They are always shiny metallic objects that emit various colors. There are often reports of small humanoid crew being on board and recovered. There is often electromagnetic interference. The reports have been consistent over decades, and thousands of witnesses have consistently pointed out that the lights act in ways that no human aircraft can. Whether they are Foo Fighters causing malfunctions in propeller craft of the Second World War, or massive saucers crashing down to Earth in remote parts of South America, one thing remains the same. No known human technology, then or now, is anything like. As for the small humanoids discovered on board, we are sometimes told these are small monkeys, or even midgets. That prototypes are cheaper and easier to build as smaller, so use a midget. Any engineer worth half his salt will argue with this nonsense. It would cost more to specially train hundreds of midgets than to use existing test pilots than it would be to add a couple of extra feet to a craft. Using monkeys is just a nonsense because witnesses have seen controls, dials, buttons, etc. inside the cockpits. Why would NASA or the military trust a monkey to fly a billion-dollar secret craft? There are so many incidents around the world from across time that we have to conclude there is something bigger afoot. Yes, a great many sightings are military and experimental craft. But not those that defy the abilities of our very latest machines, and certainly not those in 1940 and before. The Foo Fighters outmaneuvered everything we had. They twisted and turned. They sped away at incredible speeds. They turned at right angles. They interfered with electrical instruments. They appeared to be intelligent. Both sides of the conflict thought it was technology from their enemy. It wasn't then, and it isn't now. This is alien technology. This is life from another planet. They have been coming for a very, very long time. And if it is true that our military is shooting them down, then that can only mean one thing. We are at war with the aliens.